Welcome back to our class on Principles of Management. Today we are looking at Unit 2, Approaches to Management. Management theory and practice has evolved over time. This has impacted various management schools of thought. Management schools of thought can therefore trace their perspectives from the historical development and evolution of management theory and practice. There are 5 stages of management development. These stages have resulted in various approaches, or rather various perspectives of management thought and practice. The first emerged in the wake of the Industrial Revolution and came to be called classical management approach. It was burdened with the idea of structuring the organization to create an ideal form of management which guarantees effectiveness, which guarantees efficiency. The first of these was called scientific management, fathered by Fredrick, Winslow. Then there emerged administrative principles by Fayol. This was followed by ideal bureaucracy by Max Weber. These were followed by the behavioral management approach, or rather the human relations approach. The human relations approach were burdened with creating a more humane workforce as a means of achieving efficiency and effectiveness. They included Follet, who was the earliest proponent of the thought, with her organization as communities. Then there was Elton Mayo, considered to be the father of the human relations thought. Then we have Abraham Maslow's theory of human needs, considered to be the father of modern-day motivation theories. We also have McGregor's theory X and theory Y. While all these schools were inward focused, it wasn't long for a critique to emerge about its closed systems assumptions, which ruled out other environmental factors, other external factors. As such, there emerged an open systems approach, which factored in management influences of other systems, the general impact of inputs and output boundary spanning activities. However, a general critique still emerged on the prescriptive nature of all the above approaches. Their pursuit to prescribe and describe the ideal management resulted in failure for some companies, while ensuring success for others. Hence the conclusion that management is contingent to the situation in which it is applied and must not be prescribed. This was the birth of contingency management approach. However, the contingency management approach still didn't guarantee quality and the solutions to the common challenges of a globalizing world. Hence the emergence of contemporary management with its quality management, knowledge management, organizational learning, and strategic management approaches. Let's briefly look at the classical approaches, beginning with scientific management. Here, one of the prominent contributors was Fredrick Winslow, known as the father of scientific management. This thought believed in developing for every job a job science that included rules of motion, standardization of work implements, and proper working conditions. Kindly note that working conditions here is not as implied in modern or human relations approaches. It implies the work environment. One of the biggest takeaways was the call for careful selection of workers with right abilities for the job, which in the age of unskilled labor was revolutionary. This laid the foundation for modern human resource management practices of recruitment and selection. Scientific management thought called for careful training of workers to do the job and give them the proper incentives for them to cooperate with the job science. It called for motion studies, which is a science of reducing a job or a task to its basic physical motions and eliminating wasted motions to improve performance. It advocated support of workers by carefully planning their work and smoothing the way as they go about their job. Had 4 guiding principles. Number 1, develop for every job a science that includes rules of motion, standardized work implements, and proper working conditions. Secondly, carefully selecting workers with the right abilities for the job. Thirdly, carefully training workers to do the job and give them the proper incentives to cooperate with the job science. Fourthly, support workers by carefully planning their work and by smoothing the way as they go about their jobs. We now turn to administrative principles, which emerged as the basis for modern formalization of the workplace. Henry Fayol is known as the father of this school of thought. He studied managers of his time and unearthed 14 principles of management. Your assignment for this lesson is to identify and explain these 14 principles of management. The assignment should be ready by the end of the week. The assignment can be sent and forwarded to my email address. So these principles were descriptive in nature, as they reported on findings of the studies, but also became prescriptive as they emerged as the ideal standard. Allow me to only highlight 3 of these principles, given that you're going to do these as an assignment. Number 1, scatter chain. Here it means that there should be a clear and unbroken line of communication from top to bottom of the organization. Secondly, unity of command. Each person should receive orders from only one boss, only one supervisor for each person. Unity of direction. One person should be in charge of all activities within the same performance objectives. Alright, another key contributor to the classical management was Max Weber with his ideal bureaucracy. He sought to prescribe the most efficient, rational, and ideal organizational form. This was based on principles of logic, order, and legitimate authority. Some of the characteristics are as follows: clear division of labor, clear hierarchy of authority, formal rules and procedures, impersonality of office, careers based on merit. So, by clear division of labor, he meant people must be specialized. Work and workers must be grouped. Clear hierarchy of authority. This implies that there must be a hierarchy of authority, a formal reporting procedure from bottom to the top. Formal rules and procedures. These code for organizational rules, procedures, and policies. Impersonality of office. There must be a differentiation of the person holding the office and the office they hold to avoid abuse of office. Personal issues of the individual holding the office must not affect the office. The office must not affect the personal issues of the person in office. Career based on merit. Here, the call was for meritocracy. A person should hold the office they qualify for. This, however, resulted in some adverse effects, such as red tape, which is excessive paperwork, irresponsiveness, which is slowness in handling problems, rigidity, which is failure to face shifting needs, resistance to change. This is resistance to adaptation to changes in the external and internal environment. We now turn to human relations approaches. The first and most renowned contributor is Mary Parker Follet, who advocated for organizations as communities. She discussed groups and human cooperation. She argued that groups allow individuals to combine their talents for a greater good. Organizations are therefore cooperating communities of managers and workers. The manager's job is to help people cooperate and achieve an integration of interests. She therefore discussed the forward-looking management approach, which in a way inspired the modern learning organization. She argued that management must make every employee feel a sense of ownership, which provides a sense of collective responsibility. This has contributed to the modern day employee ownership, profit sharing, and gain sharing. She also argued that business problems involve a variety of interrelated factors. This became the foundation of the modern day systems approach or systems thinking. She also argued that private profits relate to public good. This created the foundation of modern day managerial ethics and social responsibility, the very foundation upon which management as a profession has emerged. One of the most renowned contributors to the human relations approach was called Elton Mayo, with his Hawthorne studies. He is called the father of the human relations approach. His initial study examined how economic incentives and physical conditions affected worker output. And here he found no consistent relationship, but then discovered that there were other psychological factors that influenced the results. And so he intended to redo the study to deal with these psychological factors that influenced the results. And so he came to discover that social setting and human relations affect worker output. He manipulated physical work conditions to assess the impact on output. These were designed to minimize the psychological factors of previous experiments. So Mayo and his colleagues concluded that new social settings led workers to do good jobs. Good human relations resulted in higher productivity. Therefore, the conditions of service, the social setting in which people work, resulted in higher productivity. He found that employee attitudes and group processes have a direct impact on productivity. Some things satisfied some workers, but not others. So attitude mattered. People restricted output to adhere to group norms. Therefore, group behaviors, informal groups within the organization affected work output. What lessons can we learn from the Hawthorne studies? Social and human concerns are key to productivity. We also learn of the Hawthorne effect. People who are singled out for special attention perform as expected. Another human relations contributor was Maslow through his theory of human needs. A need is a psychological or physiological deficiency that a person feels compelled to satisfy. Maslow listed 5 levels of need. There are physiological needs, which are physical needs. Needs like food, water, and the like. There are safety needs, which includes needs of a good and safe home and a good and safe working environment. Then there are social needs, which are needs to interact to create a sense of belonging. Then there are esteem needs, which are needs to feel a sense of accomplishment, to feel a sense of recognition. Then there's self-actualization, which is the ultimate need to feel a sense of worth, to feel a sense of ultimate achievement. The principle behind the theory of human needs is that there is the deficit principle. A satisfied need is not a motivator of behavior. There's also the progression principle. A need becomes a motivator once the preceding lower level need is satisfied. However, both principles cease to operate at self-actualization process, which is a problem. Maslow's hierarchy of need did not factor in the regression principle. It's possible for someone to move from a higher level need and drop down to a lower level need. It's possible for someone who has moved to a higher level to feel dissatisfied with the higher level. It's possible for someone who has attained a higher level need to feel dissatisfied with the higher level need and make preference for a lower level need. We also have McGregor's theory X and theory Y. Under theory X, McGregor assumes that workers dislike work. They lack ambition. They are very irresponsible. They are resistant to change. Therefore, they prefer to be led. And as such, the theory X manager is a manager that wants to supervise at every point, that are always on top of things, always on top of people, always following them up because they don't like to work. They must be forced to work. They lack ambition. They must be motivated and pushed. They are irresponsible. They must be pressed with a sense of responsibility. They are resistant to change. They have to be pushed towards change. They prefer to be led. So the manager is always there to lead them. Then we have McGregor's theory Y, which assumes the opposite. It assumes workers are willing to work, capable of self-control, willing to accept responsibility. They are creative, innovative, and imaginative. They are capable of self-direction. So the manager must just allow them to do what they are willing to do, to exercise their self-control, to exercise their sense of responsibility, to apply their creativity and innovation, and to move with a sense of self-direction and self-motivation. There are several implications for theory X and theory Y. Firstly, managers create self-fulfilling prophecies. The theory X manager creates a situation where workers become dependent and reluctant. The theory Y manager creates a situation where workers respond with initiative and high performance. Away from the human relations approach, we have the systems approach. The systems approach is a critique to previous theories. It's a critique to previous theories and approaches. In the previous theories and approaches, there is little to no attention paid to the external environment. And so the systems theory argues that an organization operates as a system. A system here is a collection of interrelated parts that function together to achieve a common purpose. So an organization becomes a system that works together to achieve a common purpose. A subsystem, on the other hand, is a smaller component of a larger system. The systems approach advocated for an open systems approach, which argues that organizations interact with their environment in the continual process of transforming resource inputs into outputs. So the organization as a system receives inputs from its environment, processes these inputs, and transforms them into outputs. So in receiving inputs and conveying outputs, the system or the organization is affected and affects the environment. So they argued that within an organization are subsystems. For example, there may be a purchasing and inventory system. There is a marketing and sales and distribution system. There is an operation and service and management system. There is an accounting and financial system. There is an information and technological system. These subsystems work together as one system to transform inputs received from suppliers into outputs given to customers. So through the supplies and other factors, the system is affected. Through the outputs and its decisions, the system affects the external environment, or it affects another system. Then there emerged the contingency approach. In the contingency management thought, there was a critique that all of these other proponents, all of these other approaches were prescriptive in nature. They were trying to find one best way to manage, one best way to organize, one best way to handle an organization. But in the contingency thought, they tried to match managerial responses with the problem and opportunities unique to the different situations. Under contingency, it is argued that there is no one best way to manage, no one best way to lead. The appropriate way to manage depends upon the situation. It depends upon the circumstances in which the organization is in. But the contingency approach also did not factor in a lot of other factors. Issues like quality management, issues like knowledge management, issues like strategic management. And therefore, there arose the contemporary approach, which is also known as the modern approach. One of these is the quality management approach, where managers and workers in progressive organizations are quality conscious. Working in a competitive environment requires you to have a better quality of service, a better quality of products. Here, quality and competitive advantage are linked. Ultimately, there is a move towards total quality management, TQM, which is a comprehensive approach to continuous quality improvement for a total organization. This creates context for the value chain. Total quality management is applied at every point of the value chain, every point of the production process, every point of the distribution process. Under quality management, there is a goal towards continuous improvement, continuous search for new ways to improve quality. There is always something that can be done to improve the quality. And as such, there have emerged international standards of certification. Global quality benchmarks have been created to ensure that organizations are able to meet those benchmarks, are able to provide higher quality. There is a process to refine and upgrade quality to meet the ISO standards. Then we also have knowledge management and organizational planning. What is this? Knowledge management is the process of using intellectual capital for competitive advantage. It recognizes a portfolio of intellectual assets, which include patents, intellectual property rights, trade secrets, and accumulated knowledge of the entire workforce. So gaining knowledge, keeping knowledge, and reserving rights to this knowledge has emerged as a success factor for many organizations. What about learning organizations? Learning organizations are organizations that are capable to continually learn and adapt to new circumstances. They have 6 core ingredients, which are encourage learning, information sharing, teamwork, empowerment, and participation. Lastly, under contemporary approaches, is the strategic management approach, which includes environmental scanning activities, scanning the macro environment, the pestel factors, political, economic, social, technological, ecological, and legal factors. Scanning the micro environment, which is basically scanning the internal environment, the organizational structure, the organizational culture, the organizational systems and subsystems, which we are going to look at later in greater details. Scanning the meso environment, which is scanning the task force or market environment, scanning the environment where we do our business, suppliers, customers, competitors, regulators, and many others all form the meso environment. It also includes environmental spanning activities, which is linking and aligning the organization for the macro, micro, and meso environmental factors, which means ensuring that the organization is strategically positioned. Under the environmental spanning activities, there is amalgamation of the future, the present, and the past in a strategic plan, to ensure a strategic positioning, to ensure a strategic alignment, to ensure that there is a proper linkage of this organization within its environment for it to thrive, not just for now, but also for the future. So these are the 5 approaches to management. This marks the end of our lesson. Please ensure that you do your assignment by the end of the week. Have a blessed day.